Welcome back. Okay, our goal in this module is to perform the operation square root on real numbers. Before we can perform the operation square root, we need to understand which numbers we can take the square root of very easily in our brain, in our head, without needing aid of a calculator. And these numbers that we're going to be able to square root in our head have a special name. They are called perfect square numbers. So it's very important, again, to listen to your vocabulary. A perfect square number is a number produced by multiplying a number times itself. It's produced by squaring a number. So what we're going to go through first is we're going to make a list of the first 20 perfect square numbers. Now, this list never has to end. It can go on forever. We're just going to focus on the first 20 perfect squares because those are the numbers that come up commonly when you're doing your mathematics homework. So let's talk about what are the perfect square numbers. Well, if you look at your PowerPoint, I've broken them down slowly. The first perfect square is formed by multiplying 1 times 1. And 1 times 1, which is 1 squared, happens to be 1. So 1 is a perfect square number. The next perfect square number is formed by multiplying 2 times 2, which is written as 2 squared. And we all know 2 squared is 4. So 4 is a perfect square number. The third perfect square number is formed by multiplying 3 times 3. 3 times 3, which is 3 squared, is 9. So 9 is a perfect square number. And so on and so on and so on. So what you have here in red in your PowerPoint are your perfect square numbers. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. 121, 144. Now those first 12 you should all know because anybody that's in math should have mastered the 12 times tables. So you should know that. It's the last 8 perfect squares you may be unfamiliar with that you need to practice. So yes, you guys need to know 13 times 13 is 169. 14 times 14 is 196. 15 times 15 is 225. 16 times 16 is 256. 17 times 17 is 289. 18 times 18 is 324. 19 times 19 is 361. 20 times 20 is 400. That is your list of your first 20 perfect square numbers. Now, again, that list can go on indefinitely, but for the sake of mathematics class, we try to maintain and work with those smaller numbers. Any number that is a perfect square can be written with the exponent 2. We all know 9 is 3 squared. We all know 100 is 10 squared. Well, if you can write that as a square, then we just learned the opposite of squaring. The inverse operation is square rooting. Therefore, any number that's a perfect square, you can square root in your head and do no work. You should just know the answer, which you guys know. In the previous PowerPoint we looked at, we all said what was the square root of 9, and you all told me 3. You didn't have to do any work for that. You knew 3 times 3 is 9. 9 is a perfect square, therefore you can square root it. So again, if you look at this PowerPoint, when I ask you what is the square root of 25, there should be no work. You should know that answer. You should say to yourself, 25 is a perfect square, so that guarantees there was a number times itself that made 25. What number did I square to make 25? Oh, that's 5. So the square root of 25 is 5. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, to work with square roots, you are going to have to memorize the perfect square list. You're going to have to know that list off the tip of your tongue. Because there should be no hesitation. When I ask you what the square root of 81 is, you should know, can I do that or not? Is 81 a perfect square or is it not? Well, 81's on the list, so I can do the square root of it. If I asked you the square root of 5, is 5 on that list? No. If you look at the list, it goes 1, 4, 9. There's no 5 on that list, which means you cannot square root that number. So it's very important to understand, if this whole module is about square rooting, then the first place we got to start is with memorized facts. You cannot square root unless you know whether or not what's inside, what the radicand is it a perfect square? If it is a perfect square, then great. You can square root it, just give me the answer. If it's not a perfect square, we're going to find out later on how we deal with that expression. Okay, we're going to go to the whiteboard and try some. I'll see you there.